Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking and Barry back again. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing better. Yesterday was very panic attacky for me, so when I woke up this morning, I'm like, okay, let's take it a little bit easier today. Let's go a little bit more calm into all of this. I made a video last night, more serious kind of video than what I normally put out. I'll put that in the description below if you haven't seen that yet. But for today, I thought let's talk about some My Hero Academia, okay? Because there's some major stuff going on right now in My Hero Academia. I wanted to make this video last week talking about Shigaraki, but I'm actually kind of glad I waited until now to talk about it because we got the last chapters that expands upon it even more. So big time spoilers coming out for chapters. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about 272 and 273, chapter that just came out this week. So if you're not like exactly caught up on My Hero Academia, if you're a few chapters behind with everything that's been going on, I would suggest going, catch up for those chapters now, because for any of us that have read shonen for a very long time, we all know the chapter that's the shit gets real kind of chapter. You're reading your favorite manga, you're going along, and then there's that one chapter where the author just, okay, here it is, and just like, what? Like in Bleach, it was like, oh, Aizen's the main villain now, okay, or Ichigo's new Bankai, alright. So, yeah, the last few chapters of My Hero, yeah, that was what that was. That's what Horikoshi did, and, not even just the fact that, like, what I'm going to talk about today, read those chapters, just read them yourself, just because I feel like those last few chapters are some of the best in My Hero Academia, okay? Like, seriously, really good stuff, okay? So, yeah, I've already made, like, 2 or 3 videos about Shigaraki, so just to give you a really quick recap on my thoughts and opinions on him, I like his character. I like the way that Horikoshi handles both Deku and Shigaraki, alright? A lot of times in a lot of other shonen, for example, I mean, not every single shonen is like this. A lot of times you'll have an overarching villain that'll be there from, like, the start of the series all the way to the end, but a lot of other stuff I talk about, like One Piece, for example, I mean, yeah, you do have an overarching villain that is Blackbeard, is, like, gonna be the person that, like, Luffy's gonna, and the Straw Hats are gonna fight against eventually at the end of the story, but even with Blackbeard, he didn't, like, pop up at the very beginning of the story, right? Shigaraki, he's been there, right since the first major battle of this entire manga. We had the introduction arc to get to know Deku and All Might and everything, and passing on One for All, and meeting the other kids like Bakugo and Todoroki and Ida and everybody. But the first major battle we had in this story, the USJ arc, boom, Tomura Shigaraki, he shows up with a bunch of his villains at the USJ, a bunch of his group, and he's like, all right, I'm the villain, let's get to this. And it's not a situation of, like, Deku just beating down Shigaraki one time and be like, boom, okay, I beat down Shigaraki, that villain is taken out, we're never gonna hear from him for the rest of this story, now we gotta move on to other great threats that exist in this world of My Hero Academia. No. Horikoshi set this up from pretty much day one. That's like, here's the deal. Here's Izuku, and you have All Might as his mentor, and then you have All for One passing that down to Tomura Shigaraki. Not just in the way of philosophy, not just in the way of raising up Tomura, but quite literally passing on All for One into Tomura Shigaraki, okay? The first thing I want to bring up, by the way, regarding all the crazy stuff we learned in the last few chapters is that duplication quirk that the doctor was talking about, that has to be incredibly powerful, alright? Because you're talking about, like, okay, given the fact that All for One has amassed all these quirks over the years, it would make sense that at some point, well, it might not even be a quirk now that I think about it. It might just be the results of the experimentation that the doctor did. But whatever. Through some form and some mechanism, they created a way to perfectly duplicate a quirk. Now, when you're talking about a simple quirk, like you got Ida's engine or something, or maybe to use something that's not really, because, like, Ida's engine literally changes his body. Let's talk about, like, how about just, honestly, let's just talk about Uraraka's gravity. Let's just do that. Okay, so you have an ability to duplicate a quirk, duplicate the zero gravity thing on somebody else. That's already powerful enough. But the way that the way that the doctor talked about it was that All for One was able to duplicate the quirk All for One to make it so he could have a copy of it, so when he fought against All Might at Kamino, and all that crazy stuff that he did, he made that giant arm, like, corkscrew, airwalk, pistons, bone spears, like strength enhancement ×4, all that crap that he made, and he was punching All Might and all that stuff. That was just a copy of his original quirk. What he apparently did was, because right after that battle at Kamino, he was taken into custody and thrown in Tartarus. So he didn't really have any opportunity to pass it on then. So even when he was fighting All Might, he had a copy of this quirk. So he took the copy, the original, which still had stored all of the other quirks that All For One amassed in its original form, and he gave that, I guess he trusted that to the doctor. I don't exactly know. See, this is where it gets kind of complicated. How exactly do you store a quirk? I mean, it's the doctor. He's all this mad scientist, experimentation, and everything, so he probably figured out some way to store it, and then when Tomura was ready, pass it on to him, which just happened with his awakening in the last 2 chapters, and we got to see the full extent of his awakened powers with his Decay quirk, and it's going to get way more intense with his true power now. So he now has that. He has the flip side of One For All, that like the evil version of that quirk. That's what I really like about these two, you know? I remember when like just recently, like a couple, arcs back, when Deku, we find out through the past vestiges of One For All that like, hey kid, you're gonna learn on top of learning One For All and all the crazy strength powers that All Might displayed, on top of that, you're also gonna learn 6 additional quirks. Now, we've already kind of established that all of those quirks are not going to be ridiculously OP, like the Black Whip thing. It's just like, that's like, okay, it's a useful quirk to be used. Deku is essentially Spider-Man right now, but it's not like the most ridiculously powerful quirk on the planet, okay? So he's going to get, and then we have, and then we get Nana's, hers was floating. I'm like, okay, float, that's a pretty cool power to have. You know, once again, not something super uncommon in the world, but a useful quirk to add to Deku's toolbox. I know a lot of people were thinking like, oh my god, Deku, he's going to be so ridiculously overpowered by the end of the story, and then, but you see what, like, the same stuff kind of happens with Shigaraki. You know, it's just like, Deku gets that power boost, so does Shigaraki. They're leveling up at right around the same time, and Horikoshi is paying, I mean, like, obviously Deku is the main character, so we're not seeing, like, as much of Shigaraki as we've seen of Deku, but we had the whole Villain Academia, a little mini arc there, focused on just the villain organization and Tomura, and his backstory and everything, so Horikoshi's really going into this. He's going into this and just like, okay, this is not just a one-time villain, this is not just somebody that's gonna pop up, Deku has to defeat and then move on. This is setting it up for being like the final battle of this story. The final battle here from the very beginning was set up to be Deku and Shigaraki representing like the former generations of like All For One and All Might clashing with each other, okay? Because generations and stuff like that have a big, big theme in My Hero Academia, especially since now we're talking about like the quirk singularity theory that the doctor was bringing up, talking to Present Mike about all that stuff. There's a lot of different twists and turns that I'm sure are going to come down the pipeline that Horikoshi's going to throw at us, right? But for right now, if Tomura were to fight against Izuku one-on-one, yeah, I'm thinking Izuku's not going to have a chance. From what we saw from the last chapter, he's now capable of at least controlling 45% of One For All, which is good. His shoot style has improved really well. Crazy, that's awesome. That might not even be the upper limit from what he can do, because we had a little bit of a time skip there. We kind of skipped from like January to like the end of March. So we had like about 3 or so months for Izuku to really train. So who knows, 45%, that might be just what he's comfortable with right now. Like I can handle 45% without like straining my body too much. But if I need to, I can notch that up to 50%, 55% starts to strain the legs a little bit, but I can handle it, but, whatever. Then again, you have to figure that considering they were witnessing an entire town crumbling apart before their eyes, literally, skyscrapers and buildings and concrete just getting dissolved in front of them, and then Izuku jumps in front to kind of say, like, everybody get back! Like, when he's doing that, you're like, okay, maybe he was going at, like, the full power that he could really muster at that moment that he could have controlled, and he was, doing it. So, something interesting to note, though, is when Shigaraki awakened his power and everything was decaying around him. The hospital, the forest, the ground, the city, the town, like all the way on the bottom of the hill and everything like that. When Izuku tried to, like, knock it back, it didn't really work. And Uraraka mentioned in the last chapter, she's like, it's not like some kind of shockwave or like an effect, like it's not like Shigaraki was like, decay barrier or decay field or whatever. It's just, and it expands outward and you could just kind of knock it back or push it back or negate it in some way. No, from how we've always seen how Shigaraki's decay quirk works, So what we've seen from how Shigaraki's decay quirk works up until this point whatever he touches with 5 fingers all at once decays rapidly. You know, and it depends exactly. He definitely had a range that he worked with, okay? He still probably does have a range. It's just insane right now. But he's improved with that to the point where he can now choose to touch things with all 5 fingers without it being decayed, because in the last chapter he was touching his phone or like the radio or something and nothing was being, you know, it was fine. He's like, oh, I guess I can touch it now. That's cool. That's good to know. You know, it's just that the natural range of that power of his quirk has just increased exponentially. So when he really means to genuinely decay and destroy something, and he touches like a desk, the desk is gonna decay. The decay on the desk is gonna spread to the floor. Then it's gonna spread to the walls. Then the ceiling. Then surrounding rooms. Then the entire building. Then the surrounding outdoors. And then it's just gonna keep going and going and going for several kilometers. It honestly saw like that was his range in the last chapter. So obviously, I think the smart thing for Class 1A right now is just to get the hell out of there, you know, strategic retreat, because we just don't know when this decay is just gonna stop, and there really doesn't seem any way to stop it or even slow it down. It's gonna be coming for you no matter what. Now, I'm sure, okay, now listen, like, the way they were building up Tomura, you gotta understand, like, this entire first part of this arc. I mean, there was a lot of other really cool moments right now, like with Twice and with Tokoyami and Hawks and everything. Really good moments in this arc. But you have to understand, Horikoshi took like a handful of chapters before Tomura's awakening to really just hammer it in. Like, when Tomura wakes up, he is going to be someone that can destroy the Earth. Like, he might not have that power right as soon as he breaks out of his gooey little, like, tube or whatever. A lot of gooey... We're talking about Sailaporo, and also now we're doing this, okay? But, yeah, it's just like... Yeah, he might not be able to do it right away, but make no mistake, if he improves his power and everything like that, and everything's kind of, like, unstable right now, especially when he woke up, it was, like, almost... It was only, like, 75%, right? So there might be some added effects from that that might mitigate his powers for right now, but... just from his awakening alone, it's just like, no, this is real shit right now we're getting into, okay? To the point where him just touching something could wipe out everything in, like, I want to say like 5 kilometers, like if he wanted to, just like that. Now it's not instant. That's something else you got to keep in mind. There is like a time delay here. It's not like he touches something and then everything 5 kilometers around him just shrivels up and dies. It takes, you know, time for the decay to travel. I'm also assuming, although this is an assumption here, the further his power goes out, and, you know, from away from his body, it would begin to slow down and the effects would kind of weaken. But from what we've seen, that doesn't seem to be the case with at least that, like, 5 kilometers or whatever, from the hospital all the way down into the town and then the end of the city limits. It was traveling at seemingly a relatively fast pace. All right, so I wonder, though, if he kept that up, if he, like, if, you know, Shigaraki really wanted to figure out what the limit is with his power, what the overall range is, and he just goes out somewhere and then just touches the ground, would it increase if he touched the ground with 2 hands instead of just 1? I'm wondering about that. And from what it really seems like right now, it doesn't even necessarily have to be his hands that touch the thing. It's just like his body becomes the decay quirk. It's just like, I will decay anything that I desire at any time. That really seems to be the full power of this, right? So if he just goes out somewhere and just touches the ground and just like, all right, let's measure exactly what my upper limit is of what I can do here. I doubt he could do something so ridiculous as like touch the ground and like decay all of Japan if he really wanted to. But the potential for that certainly exists right now, okay? Now, on top of his decay quirk getting a huge upgrade, he's also got some other stuff right now. He's also got, from what we saw in the last chapter, we saw the vials that he was taking out of that little thing that, you know, he was removing, and he was saying, like, oh yeah, Overhaul would be really upset that most of these were damaged, which I'm assuming that is the bullets that could remove the quirks, because he mentioned Overhaul. You know, it's like, okay, so that technology that, you know, Shigaraki stole from Overhaul, and then he delivered to the doctor, and then the doctor was trying to replicate that stuff. Is like, since the explosion happened and everything, and also the decay powers that Shigaraki did, there aren't very many of those left, but, you know, Shigaraki has his hands on the ones that are around, so he has those. And then, more pressing of an issue right now, he's got all of the stockpile quirks that his master, All For One, has acquired. So, Here's the thing. Now, All for One right now is imprisoned in Tartarus. So it's not the same kind of dynamic that, All Might has with Izuku, where All Might's kind of always around to support Izuku and teach him as much as he knows about his quirk, because it used to be his, right? Okay, it's not exactly that same dynamic right now, but we all know the kind of guy that All for One is. He's the kind of guy that, knew someday his body, the way that his body was ravaged by All Might and his health was declining, he knew that at some point he would end up in the situation he would be in. Locked up in a maximum security prison, no chance of really escape, although, Stain's in there too, so we can kind of assume he might. You know what? With Shigaraki's new power, that would seem like a relatively easy thing to do now. Because a quirk on the level of that Decay is, that's definitely leveling up type shit. Stuff we haven't seen in the story before. Like, oh yeah, my quirk can just decay an entire town. We've seen some really high-octane quirks here. We've seen Endeavor's Prominence Burns. We've seen, the Detroit Smashes from All Might. We've seen a bunch of different, really crazy powerful quirks that can affect a large range. But this is insanity, right? This is credible that he can do that stuff. So, Shigaraki's next step, he could literally just, doesn't even have to walk up to the prison. That prison is on an island, there's a bridge. He could literally just walk to the end of the bridge and just grab onto the bridge with both hands and just be like, Master, I'm coming for you! And then just decay the entire bridge, and the guards at the prison are like, Red alert! Red alert! Oh my god, what's happening? And just everything just decays. And if Shigaraki has this, precision control here, he can basically, wipe out all the guards and, make sure that his master is protected and also make sure maybe Stain also, well, I don't know how Shigaraki would really feel about Stain, but Stain's not just going to die in that way. If there's going to be a prison break, if All for One is going to get out, then Stain is also going to get out at the same time. Plus all the other, maximum security prisoners that are down there, not just Stain and All for One. There's a bunch of other criminals down there that have really dangerous quirks that might become allies of Shigaraki, whether or not that they even really want to. You look at Shigaraki's sheer power, and then he's the heir of All for One and everything he stood for. A lot of the villains down there might just be like, you know what, we don't really agree with you and everything. We have our own things, our own ambitions and stuff, but, you could literally wipe us out, with a thought, essentially, at this point, so I guess we'll follow you, right? Then there's Shiganto Makina, also, that Shigaraki summoned him in the last chapter, so we have no idea what he's going to make him do, but now he has him completely under his thumb, and, it's going to be able to help, everything's going to be able to, but now he has him completely under his control, so that's also going on. Like I said, I think the smartest thing to do right now in terms of Izuku in Class 1A, get the hell, everybody bail. Everybody strategically retreat. Fatgum, get out of there. Aizawa, get out of there. Crust gave his life, Aizawa, so you could get out of there. Escape. Everybody get out. Leave. And then alright, well, that didn't exactly go as planned. I hope Mirako gets out of there alive. Come on, Mirako! Everybody gets out of there okay. I think Endeavor cauterized her wounds and everything. I think she's gonna make it out okay. She's gonna be missing an arm, but it's okay. It's the future society here. We got, mechanical arms and stuff. We can make this work. Cyborg muscular bunny girl. Yes! Yes! But anyway, everybody get out of there, and then, gonna have to figure out some new way to handle this, okay? Now, with Izuku, it might be a little bit tricky, because Izuku's also got the original user of One for All inside of him, telling him, hey, Shigaraki, he is awakening. The power of All for One is here. It's now. You have to do something about this. Now, I don't, like I said, just with the power set that Izuku has right now, which, let's be generous here, okay? Let's be generous. Let's say Izuku can, handle 50, 55, maybe even 60% of One for All really well, okay? And over the course of that little mini time skip we had, he's also mastered the Black Whip, and I'll even give you the float powers too. He's had 3 months to kind of work with this, and he can even do the float powers pretty decently. Alright, it's only been a few months. I can't see Izuku mastering, oh yeah, it's been just a few months. I now have access to all 6 quirks. I know what they all are. I can all use them all. It's all good. So let's just say he focused on Black Whip and Float, and then mastering his percentages of One for All. Okay, with that power set he has right now, once again, I don't see him really standing up to Shigaraki, plus the League of Villains, which are also reinvigorated, plus Gigantomachina. That's, like, way too much right now, okay? He could try to see where we can go with this. He could try to fight against him. Maybe because Endeavor is racing towards Shigaraki right now, so maybe Shigaraki and Endeavor, they're gonna have this big epic brawl. And then that's when, like, when it looks like Endeavor might not be able to handle it, it's looking like he might die. That's when Izuku and hell, even Todoroki, get Izuku and Todoroki in there, and then they kind of, like, get Endeavor out of there. And Shigaraki, the way he is right now, I think there's a lot on his mind of what he really wants to accomplish and everything. I think he wants to see his group again. He summoned Gigantomachina, obviously, get everybody together. And I think he realizes that, okay, I do have all this power inside of me that the Master lent to me. So I want to figure out how to use that. His ultimate goal has always been, I'm just going to destroy everything. Just everything gets wiped out. That was his ultimate goal, right? But I think he might realize now more than anything, like, okay, my dream, my goal is in my grasp. But I need some other people to help me do this and plan out exactly what we're going to do right now. So if Endeavor and Shigaraki clash to kind of give us a handle on all of Shigaraki's capabilities, even maybe his mitigated capabilities right now, and then Endeavor's looking like he might lose, and then Todoroki and Izuku show up and get away, you can have a moment with Izuku maybe staring down with Shigaraki. That'd be really cool with Izuku and Shigaraki, and then you maybe could have, like, the vestiges of One for All behind Izuku, and then you could have, like, the vestige of All for One behind Shigaraki, and they kind of, like, stare each other down, and they know that they're not going to have their final battle right now at this moment, but they know and they realize that there is really no turning back from this. There is no negotiation. There is no, like, we could maybe get along, or we could bring you over to, like, talk no jutsu. We could bring you over to my side or your side. There's really none of that. They can look at each other and be like, oh, hi, Izuku. How have you been doing? I've been good. I was taking a nap for a little while. I was really sleepy, you see. But now I've woken up, and I just feel like I can do anything. And then Izuku's like, oh. Yeah, and then, like, at that point, I think everybody get out of there, everybody escape, hold a funeral for Crust, and then figure out what we're going to do next, while Shigaraki mobilizes his crew together, and Gigantomachina, and then we'll see where that's going to go. But this is going to change, like, everything. This is going to change, like, the whole nature of how fights are kind of performed in this series. Like, you could see all the heroes, the ones that survived, getting together at, like, the police station or whatever, meeting up and just being like, okay, he decayed an entire town in less than, like, 5 minutes. What the hell? How the hell do we fight that? He's got this giant, you know, man mountain working for him. He's got Dabi. He's got freaking Toga. He's got Mr. Compress. He's got all these ridiculously powerful members of the Liberation Army working for him. How the hell are we even going to fight that? We need to figure out whole new ways of combat here. This is going to, honestly, I think, plunge the general public of My Hero Academia into a state of terror. You know, because this isn't just like, you know, walking around town and, oh, there were some villains that robbed a grocery store or something, and they're running through town, and then the hero shows up. Don't worry, citizens, I will take care of this. Hero away! Hero man away! You know, this is nothing like that. This is like a guy that can literally just, you know, walk into a town and just do that, and gone. And so, yeah, this is going to be whole new ball game from where we're going on from right now. But I'm loving what's happening with Shigaraki's character, and I can't wait to see where this is really going to go. A lot of apprehension right now that Horikoshi's doing a really good job of conveying in his story, so I can't wait for that. So yeah, that'll be this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be safe, be kind, everybody. This will be Tekking101 and Barry signing out. Oh, something else I wanted to bring up. I also finally started reading Demon Slayer. Yeah, I read the first chapter of it while I was on the toilet this morning. So pretty good, pretty good. I learned the whole, because, like, all the memes are from, like, you know, this girl with the, like, the tube in her mouth, and every time I see that picture of that girl, I'm just like, okay, what's the deal? Why does she have a tube in her mouth? So now I know the reason! So it's all working out. So I'm starting to read this, and sure, I'm sure just like every other shonen, there's also going to be a shit gets real chapter in this one. So if you've read this, let me know which chapter is going to be that. You don't have to explain to me what's going to happen. Be like, oh yeah, Tekking, chapter 42 of Demon Slayer. That's when it gets dropped. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for it. But read chapter 1, pretty good series. I'm going to start with that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking and Barry, signing out.